stop. So Blinded by the Light. Love that song. Interesting week, the week that was. Top couple things that are kind of portending the ends of the earth as we know it in 2020. The country can't figure out how to open up amid a pandemic, which seems odd at best. You've got states that have a lot of data that are not opening up. States that have no data, they're like, woo, let's party, and everything in between. Interesting. Another interesting thing, the Axl Rose, Steve Mnuchin feud. That is made for TV shit right there. That is awesome. But that's just another sign that 2020 is the end of the world as we know it. And in a little known codicil today, published in a scientific journal in China, and I wish I should have wrote the name down, adds a new meaning to the term safe sex because they're actually finding that 16% of semen, or 60% of men that have had or have COVID-19 have detectable amounts of COVID-19 in their semen. Another interesting fact, another way the disease can spread. So have super, super safe sex out there, I guess, if you're planning on doing that kind of thing. Just a super interesting week for me, as you can tell. I'm kind of in a very odd mood today. It's like 80 degrees in Seattle, which is amazing. So as soon as I'm done with this, I'm going to go out in the back deck, in the back 40, out there, and I'm going to really get my drink on. The drink this week is super interesting. So let's talk about the Bespoke, okay? Fun facts, like what is the Bespoke? So the Bespoke is actually a cocktail that's totally made up. Totally made up. When you go into a bar and you have the bartender make you a drink, right? And you say, "Hey, look, I'm interested." Like that. That's a bespoke drink, right? You're talking to the bartender. You're trying to get something else from him that's kind of out of the ordinary, right? So bespoke cocktails and the people that make them have been around forever. But right around the millennium in New York City, the bar scene was totally just hammered with this idea of bespoke cocktails, all these custom cocktails, because instead of ordering off the menu, it was, of course, the cool and trendy thing to get something custom from a bartender. And so it separated the good bartenders from the crappy ones, because the good ones could listen to what you're saying and make something really interesting for you, and the bad ones just suck and would give you like a gin and tonic, right? So it was kind of encouraged to go into these bars, and bartenders would say, well, what do you want? Do you want something like spirit forward? Do you want something a little bit more refreshing? Do you want it smoky? Do you want it tart? Do you want it herbal? Do you want it spicy? Do you like whiskey, vodka, rum? Like, what's kind of your preference there? Are you a Scorpio or a Sagittarius or are you a Leo? And they would take this information and they'd make these bespoke cocktails, right? With essentially little to go on other than about 10 seconds of interaction with their patron, right? Bartenders were whipping up these bartender's choice cocktails left, right, and center, specifically for their patrons' tastes, right? Today, unfortunately, I think the idea of a bespoke cocktail is more of a myth because it seems they're all being monetized. Like if a bartender figures out something good to make, it becomes on the menu, and then every TGI freaking Fridays has it, right? But I'm going to make you mine because this is mine, bespoke cocktail. So you may be asking yourself, well, Steve, if a bespoke cocktail really is about the bartender talking to you and figuring out what you like, how did you come up with this? And I can only say I talked to myself a lot. And that's how I came up with the Bespoke, because I was talking to myself about what do I like, okay, right? So what do I like? I love bourbon, right? I love gimlets. We went over gimlets the other week. I hate wine. Having said that, many of my friends love wine. And so I'm thinking to myself, okay, what can I make that satisfies all of those things? And it kind of became a love child between a drunk whiskey and a gimlet, and they got together and they had this love child, and the child grew up and became really sophisticated and screwed their parents and just started drinking wine, right? That's kind of where this came from. It surprised the heck out of me that I like it so much. This is one of Molly's favorite drinks now. I've only been making this for maybe 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, not that long. So this is a new drink in my repertoire, but I like it and I want to share it with you guys. And it's super easy to make. The nice thing about the Bespoke, there's a couple things that are really cool about it. One, it's super easy to make. You should have everything around your house to make this already, right? Compared to or relative to the drinks we've been making, this one's super easy. So that's one thing, right? The other is that it adds a flavor that we haven't had before, these wines. And that's really going to be interesting. And I think you'll like it. But the third thing, and like the cool thing, is this is the drink where I figured out how to make a really good float. And a float is a layered drink. Okay? And so when I get to that part, I'm going to kind of bring the phone down and I'm going to show you how to do this stuff. But let's talk about the ingredients, right? Simple syrup, lemon juice, we've got that stuff, right? For the bourbon, I'm going to use Eagle Rare. I really like this stuff. It's probably, like, I think we talked about this a few weeks ago. This always comes in as one of the top 5 bourbons under like 30, 35 bucks. If you can find a bottle, grab it because it's really amazing. The wine I'm going to use, I'm not a wine person. Molly picked this out for me. It's by the Great American Wine Company or something like that. It's a red blend. I kind of like a more like, if I'm going to drink wine, it's got to be fruity because I have no taste in wine at all. So that's the red wine we're going to be using. But the wine and the bourbon is really dealer's choice. So super simple. Bourbon, lemon juice, simple syrup. We're going to make this kind of like a bourbon gimlet. We're going to use a shaker to do that. Then we're going to pour that out over rocks in a highball glass. And we're going to then make a float in this, okay? And one of the things I told you to get was a spoon. If you have a bar spoon, here's a bar spoon. We're going to use this to make the float. If you have a regular spoon, that's fine too. You might find it might be a little big. We're going to use a spoon to kind of diffuse the wine when we pour it in there. So you kind of see how the spoon is a lot smaller than glass because it's going to pour over the back of the spoon to get in there to make that nice float. So that's kind of the spoon you're going to want. So let's get going. Shaker, ice. I like my drink super cold. You guys know that, especially on a day like today. I don't know where you guys are, but man, it is gorgeous here. I showed you. It's nice. Let's start with all the kind of non-essential stuff. I got lazy today and I did not squeeze fresh lemon juice, even though I've got a whole bag of lemons. I'm just grabbing this. So there you go. Normally I would squeeze some fresh lemon juice in my, crappy little squeezer, but this week I'm just going lame. So we're going to take a ½ ounce of lemon juice. Okay? That's the first thing. Very, very careful. Okay, we've got a ½ ounce of lemon juice. We're going to pour that in there. Okay, now we're going to grab our simple syrup, and this is just regular old simple syrup. So we've used like Demerara. There's a Muscovado sugar that I found. I think we may make a tequila drink with that later on because I found it's really good. There's the Bar Smith stuff we used before, but this is just regular old simple syrup. And we're going to use anywhere between about a ½ ounce and 3/4 of an ounce of this stuff. I'm going to go closer to 3/4 of an ounce of this. Whoop. Oh, might have a little bit much there, but that's okay because I'll pour in more bourbon than I probably should. So we've got the ½ ounce of lemon, about 3/4 of an ounce of simple syrup. I'm going to add 2 ounces because remember, we don't make drinks with less than 2 ounces of booze. I'm going to pour 2 ounces of my Eagle Rare in here. Maybe just a skosh more, just a teeny tiny bit more. There we go. Okay. Now here, this is kind of the gimlet part of the drink. This is the easy part, right? We're just putting stuff in a shaker, and we're going to shake that. Love that remix. Okay, getting nice and cold. See that? Okay. Now the difference is usually we stop there and pour it in a glass. In this case, we're going to get it super cold so the float actually holds a little bit better. So we're going to put more ice into there. Okay. Now let's bring you downtown a little bit so you can see what's going on with this. Okay. There we go. Perfect. Okay, we're going to pour this drink in here. Okay, I got a little too much ice in there, probably. So I'm going to drink a little bit of this off. Oh boy, a little more. Just a tad more. I mean, that by itself is actually pretty good. So what we're going to do is we're going to take an ounce to 1.5 ounces of the red. Okay, now this is where it gets maybe a little tricky. I pour that into my jigger because I find it's a lot easier to control this and pour this over the spoon. So I'm going to take 1.5 ounces of red, pour it in there, and now we've got a really, really, really cold drink. Take your bar spoon, the back of the bar spoon, face up, and you're going to pour it over slowly. Oh, look at that bad boy. Look at that. Perfectly layered. Look at that. That is a beautiful looking drink, right? It's awesome. It looks sweet. I mean, just from aesthetic purposes only, like, this is something to make for your friends. It's impressive. Now, it's important, like I said, you pour that red wine in slowly because that will give you that nice layered effect. And the other thing is, if the drink is super cold, and that's why we use ice in here, it'll actually kind of make the cold part a little denser, so it'll make the float easier for you, okay? Now, we're going to drink this bad boy, okay? So there's a float. That's the Bespoke. Now, I think it's important for this, since it's a float, you want to take a really nice big gulp. It's kind of like a Guinness, right? You got a big head from a Guinness. You want to take a big gulp because you want to get the head, you want to get the beer, you want to get everything. With this, for your first drink, take a big old gulp so you get the red wine and you get the booze. Oh, that's good. Like I said, I'm not a fan of red wine, but together with the bourbon's sweet, you've got the simple syrup, which is sweet, you've got the lemon juice, which is tart, and you've got the red wine, which I don't consider sweet. Like, red wine's got a super weird taste to me, so I'm not a big red wine fan, but it works super well, and I like it a lot. So that's the Bespoke, super easy. Remember, we started out with kind of like a bourbon gimlet. 2 ounces of bourbon, 3/4 ounce of simple syrup, 1/2 ounce of lemon juice, shaker, shake it up, pour that in a highball glass over ice, take about 1.5 ounces of red wine for your float, pour it over a spoon so it goes in slowly so you get that nice float, and take a nice big drink. Oh dude, this bad boy is going down. I don't know about you guys, but I think the pandemic has made me a better drinker. Most definitely. Definitely make me like experiment on the old alcohol side of things, which is good. Maybe for you guys, better for me. So I've been thinking about next week, and what we're going to do for next week. And I think I have an idea for what we might do. There's some drinks tonight that I'm going to kind of experiment with. My niece's boyfriend, Clayton, turned me on to something called Aviation. Super good gin drink. I'm working on a variant of an Aviation where I'm going to take that Aviation and I'm going to marry it with a Vesper Martini, and I'm going to get a Bastard Love Child. I'm going to see how that works out tonight. So that we're going to make one of those at some point. We're going to make a Sazerac at some point, which has absinthe in it. That will be fun. But I think next week we may go with breakfast drinks. And I don't mean, we're not talking about Bloody Marys, because I freaking hate tomato juice. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do mimosa. We're not going to do simple stuff like that. We'll do some actual drinks. Now, I drink them in the morning. You could drink them whenever, but they're like kind of brunchy type drinks. And one in particular is a good hangover cure, I think. Although I think most of us are old enough now where we really don't get hangovers anymore. Anyhow, that's the Bespoke. Super simple. It's like bourbon met a gimlet in a bar, got hammered, and had a really sophisticated wine-loving child. It's super tasty. I like it. The float looks really cool. It's a drink you can make to impress your friends, and it's easy. Like, all this stuff you should have lying around the house, right? If you don't have a bourbon in your house, you're a communist, okay? End of story. And I know that all of you have red wine, because I am positive that all of you are wine drinkers, or your wives are wine drinkers, or your husbands are wine drinkers. So you got red wine. And come on, simple syrup, we talked about that. It's just granulated sugar, equal parts sugar and water. Boil it, it's done. Lemon juice, if you're a lazy ass like me, you can buy some, right? But typically, I'd use freshly squeezed lemon. I think it's way better. And in fact, what I've done this entire time, save for today, is use the freshly squeezed stuff because it just tastes better, right? And it's not quite as sugary as this stuff that you buy in the store. Anyhow, that's a Bespoke. Next week, maybe we'll go with breakfast drinks. At some point, we're going to try this Vesper variant that I'm working on tonight. And we'll probably also do the aviation because I think it's a damn fine drink. And there's variants you can make of that. So that's probably where we're going. So interesting week. I want to see this Steve Mnuchin, Axl Rose feud go a little bit further. I'd like to get some more mileage out of that. I'm open for a pay-per-view. I think that would be badass. I think we could all pitch in for something like that, I think. Wow, I'm starting to slur. That is a sign of a good drink, my friends. Always drink on an empty stomach, by the way. It's probably the best way to do these things. Anyway, I will talk to you guys next week. Hope you had fun. Hope you learned something. The drink just looks cool, and it tastes really good. So have fun. Make it for your friends. Safe sex, remember, 60% and all that stuff. So have a good week, guys, and I will see you same time, same bat channel next week. Cheers.